We are back. Thank you all so much for your patience. Kirsten, tilt that just a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Like I was telling people that were watching in our last live before we had to restart, this is our first time together, all together doing this Modern Christian Family. So we had a few technical difficulties that we had to deal with, but we thank you all for dealing with them with us. Again, we were talking about our subject, which is what, Kirsten?
Our subject is growing pains, loving through disagreement. Hold on, I just looked at Daddy and I have to shout out, Daddy's birthday is tomorrow.
Yay!
Birthday boy!
Good. I see people commenting and saying, yes, it's clear. Yes, they can see.
Okay,
Great. So happy that everybody is joining us. We just needed to fix that up, and now we're happy and ready to go. Cool. So if you weren't with us ahead of time, I'll do a little bit of a recap from our live that we did just a second ago, where we were discussing relationships and how those relationships change and function and grow, which we titled Growing Pains. And so what we did is we all went around and kind of identified what we see ourselves as within this family dynamic. So my mom said she's a mother and a pastor and a wife. My dad said he's provider. He's, what's some other things you said, Dad? Husband, provider,
father,
protector, all those things. Kirsten said she was the queen supreme ruler, which is not even an accurate title.
The hate is
and
real.
then Emerald, wife, to me being the husband, all of that stuff. And what we were discussing was how those relationships begin as one thing and often morph and change and grow into something different. So I want to start with my dad and I, because out of all of our relationships, other than their marriage, this is the first relationship that formed with these people. Kirsten calls herself the Queen Supreme Princess.
Nah, I don't really do
But
that.
I was the first child. Let's all remember in the comments.
The
if
first
you're
isn't
first
always
child,
the favorite.
let us know.
That's right, we are.
That Kirsten is the second child.
No,
I am
Child
the
is the
first child.
favorite.
So I have
I'm
known
my
them
favorite.
a lot longer than she has. So me and my dad's relationship, Dad, what would you describe our relationship as in terms of father, son, what your responsibilities to me was in the beginning of our relationship, in my younger years? Don't go into later. In the beginning of our younger years, what was your responsibility to me as your son?
Well, in the early years, I mean, are we talking about? I mean, what age? We talking about?
Let's go from birth
Teenage?
up to
Birth?
let's go from birth
Oh,
up
birth.
into high school.
Oh man, birth, that was easy. I was initially provider. I mean, you know, my dad provided for my sister and I, my mom. You know, that's what he did best. You know, he may not have been there emotionally, but he was really a provider. So that was strong for me to be able to provide for my family. You know, I don't want, you know, I'm a proponent of making sure that the next generation has it better than what the former generation did. So it was in my mind to make sure educationally wise, all your needs were provided for, your shoes, if you wanted, you know, them Jordan Nikes, you can buy them Jordan Nikes and things like that. So I really, in my mind, I didn't want to scrape by. I wanted to be a great provider for my family because I knew that, you know, my mother did a great job with us as a single parent, and I wanted to make sure that my kids had even better than what we had. So I worked hard to be provider. So provider was number one. Now, that's not to say that that's what it should have been, because
That's good.
You know, nurturer. You know, I was so busy working as an electrical engineer. You know, I spent a lot of hours working and designing and bringing in that money. And I was of the mindset that, you know, the mother took care of things at home. And when I came home, I wasn't focused on directing my attentions to my real job, which was the
you should define that. The
real job, my
That's
primary
good.
job. I should say my primary job. My
Which
primary job
was-
is to my family.
Yeah.
And I didn't know. Now I would have to say I got to point and blame the moms here, because mom often didn't really tell me. She expected me to see and understand that she needed help after being with them kids all day long.
That's true. That's
And
true.
she didn't tell me. She expected me to see it, and she never said anything to me. So I come home, I want to eat, and then go zonk out, get a nap, or watch some TV or something. And it wasn't always focused on spending the quality time with the kids. So that was early. That was when
Okay,
you know.
okay.
Baby. But
So-
as we grew up, moving on to high school years, I looked at the things that I wish I had. You know, I wish I.
Okay, don't get there yet. I know where you're going. Don't get there yet. We're not in high school yet. Don't get there yet.
You
No,
said
no.
up to high school.
No, I meant up to. Like, stop.
So
before-
provider.
Okay. So I think that's good because in this growing pain conversation, I think what you brought up is your perception of who you were to me
Right.
was, I believe that was accurate. But I think as a young child, I didn't always understand that was your perception of who you were to me, because I knew you loved us
Okay.
and I knew you provided for us. But I think sometimes I viewed as son to father, I viewed my father's role as like an authority figure or a
Oh, not as
Dictator.
a father, but as a
as not even dictator. He was definitely a father. Don't get me wrong. When I say he wasn't, I just mean in his expression of his fatherhood.
Okay.
It was, my dad was he was a Marine. So he was a hard man. My father did not play no games. And so I often looked at our relationship in our younger years as very authority child.
You thought daddy was your enemy.
I can say that
To a
in
degree.
ways.
To a degree. Yeah.
I can say that in ways. Okay, so without us talking about it, Mom, you
Okay, hold on. So the other things that I didn't tell you that I was, and you just said it, there were other things that I was that contributed to that. One, I was the son of Lonnie Millard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Lonnie Millard was tough, you know.
Right.
His daddy was tough on him, and he was a tough man. You know, he DC police officer 30 years. He was tough, and I saw that, and I emulated my daddy to
Yeah,
a certain
That's
degree.
important.
That tough man stuff. So I was at that, and then you said it. The other thing was the Marine. I did 13 years in Marine Corps, so there was a certain mentality of that Marine Corps man that this how man handle his business,
Right.
and I'm gonna handle up on my kids and make sure I leave my family. So there are other things that I'd say that I was that contribute to where I fathered.
Absolutely. So, Mom,
Okay.
in your view of our relationship, I want to know, you popped out with, you saw him as your enemy. What were the results of you thinking that? What made you pop out and say that?
Because your response to his directives and or discipline was as if he was your enemy, not from a place of understanding that the directives and the discipline was coming from a place of ensuring that you would be okay in the world and
Right.
that you will follow, you know, making sure that you were clear on number one, being a young Black man and what that looks like, you know, in the earth. You know, we're not talking about that tonight, but it will allude to that. Black fathers have to talk to their
Yeah.
Black sons about things and have to bring up their Black sons in a way that they know how to deal with the world and be protected and alive and safe. And so your father, for him, and I had to learn that as well, because he and I came from two different schools of discipline. He came from the hard knocks, everything's black and white. I came from a different place where my mother was very soft. Everything was explained, you know, and even if she didn't explain it at the moment, there was always a time when she went back and said, here's why you need to understand this.
Right.
So for you didn't understand. And for a short period of time, I didn't get and didn't see that what he was doing was the best that he knew how to do in terms of preparing you for the world. He was always looking out for you because he didn't want you to experience some of the things that he had experienced. And he wanted to make sure that you were going to be safe in the world.
Yeah.
And that was the way he had to do it. So I
But
remember
my mother also was, I mean, she was a DC public school teacher. So she was a strict disciplinary as well.
Right.
And she had a tremendous influence on me too. Spankings and punishment and things like that. And all that woven together was a perspective on how I fathered.
I think that's good.
Yeah,
I think that's good. I would be interested in Kirsten's view on what you saw as a sister. I bring that up because we talk about these family dynamics and we don't always realize what these dynamics are in a home.
Right.
For example, me and Kirsten often used to joke that we had two different experiences
Yeah.
growing up in a way where in my mind, I would look at Kirsten and I would think Kirsten's growing up was roses and dainty flowers and everything pretty. And in my mind, my growing up was hard and rough and fighting and emotional. And so I'm interested in what your perspective of, and we're going to get to other relationships, you all, but right now we're starting with this one. What your perspective was on our relationship at that time growing up.
You and Daddy?
Yes.
My perspective was it was all good in the hood. Like, you know, I think the first time that are you about to cry already, Dad? Okay, just making sure. God, he be crying because I looked over, I was like, wait a minute, he might be leaving the building right now. Okay, right. But yeah, I thought it was all good in the hood. And I think the first time that I may have realized that Derek had a different perspective of his upbringing was I was in the back of the car of him and his best friend in high school, and they were having a conversation that I was eavesdropping on. I don't know why they was talking anyway, because I could hear the whole conversation. But anyways, after the whole conversation, and within that conversation, he was expressing some difficulties with, I think, daddy and mommy or whatever, with different situations. I think look, it was her too, y'all. It was her too. And so he was expressing like some difficulties. And I think whatever he said, I snapped and said, I was like, I said something like, they not like that, or they didn't say that. And I remember, I'll never forget the friend, Derek's best friend was like, well, Kirsten, obviously, she said something to the effect of, Kirsten, well, obviously, Derek has a different experience than what you have experienced. And, you know, it was the first time in life that I ever realized that, you know, we had the same upbringing, but experiences were different.
Yeah, I think Frederica's on here, and Frederica's on here. She said people love as a result of their influence of love. So I think that goes back to what Dad was saying about where he got it from. So I want to move us up in the timeline of our relationship a little bit into our high school, college years. High school, college in our relationship was very interesting because most of you on here could understand that moment where you get older and realize that you're going to start having to make decisions for yourself, and where that authoritative aspect has to start shrinking back from a fatherly perspective, because at the end of the day, he can't control the things I'm going to do anymore. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think we went through an interesting time in high school, college, because he still wanted to be dad. We high school, college.
Yeah.
See, when I was younger, I thought he was authoritative, but I would very rarely buck up.
Right.
When I got to high school,
you bucked.
And college started to subside. But high school, most father-son relationships, understand this, it became almost war. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because...
And I became an intercessor.
Yes, because we just had such different perspectives of what our relationship was supposed to be like, I think, at that time. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's other outside things. I had traumas on the outside, other stuff we'll get into another day. But Dad, I'm interested in, you were about to get into high school. When I hit that high school, college, and we were at war, what did that take back?
So there was for me just a wrong approach to fathering as you grew up. What I thought in my mind, and I still hold true, is that I'm your covering until you leave for marriage. I'm dad for life.
Right.
But I'm your covering. And so until you go off and get married and become somebody else's covering, I'm your covering. So I'm going to speak into your life. If I don't see things right, I'm going to let you know, because I want you to grow and mature into a man that's going to represent, a man that can represent as a father, a man that can represent in marriage as a husband, a man that can represent in his church and make an impact with other people, and a man that can make an impact on his community. So as far as I'm concerned, as you're maturing into that adult, I still got something to say. Now, that's how I felt about it. But there's some companion scriptures that guide you on how you do that, and I wasn't good at this.
Scriptures.
One, Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4. It talks about fathers, how you to raise your kids in the admonition of the Lord, but don't provoke them to wrath.
Oh,
then
that's good. I didn't know
How do you not provoke them to wrath? Well, Proverbs was it 15 and 1 says, a soft answer turns away wrath.
Because you would provoke me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's where,
yes, he would.
and that's where the Marine, Lonnie Millard, maybe a little bit of my grandfather James White, George Millard, all that experience that I grew up in came to bear on my approach to fathering, and I wasn't really smart or wise to those scriptures, and it came out with that authoritative, that dictatorial type attitude towards you, and that's what you were bucking up against.
Right.
Because I wasn't handling you properly, although I was trying to
So can I
develop
say
you.
this?
absolutely.
Because I think another part of that is that daddy had to realize that you weren't him. Whereas daddy, it was okay, and he just submitted to the way his father, grandfather, mother was. It wasn't necessarily a big thing. But you never were like that. And I think the part daddy and I had a conversation one day, and I think that the part that he didn't realize that we began to discuss, and I was able to share some light on, was that both Derek and Kirsten have very strong personalities. They're very courageous.
Like him.
They're exactly like him. And that is what the issue was. He is you reincarnate. He is you exactly the way that Derek is. Derek is his father in everything, in his service, like committed. Like you can't find people more committed than these two people.
Right.
If they give you their word, they're going through hell, high water, low water, no water at all. It's going to happen. Provided like the way he takes care of him and how he cares for him. Daddy has always been like that with me. Like the other day, he kind of was a little rough with me, and I sent him a message and I said, "Hey, what's going on? Because you're not rough with me.
Yeah.
What's the problem?"
Oh, but don't go there.
We're not
Don't
going
go
there.
there because we're
Growing
going to get.
pains.
We're
This is
growing.
like the
Hang on.
prelude.
Hang on, I skipped the high school part.
Oh yes. Good.
I think one of the reasons why you bucked, but you really just never did anything to destroy the relationship. And the reason why is because the other part of it was as you began to get older and you were in sports, you played basketball, you ran track, or you did all these things. I thought about the things that maybe I didn't have the way I wanted with my dad, and I made sure that you didn't have those same areas, lack of me being in attendance, being present, or whatever. Not just sports, because we always think African American kids, that's all they in sport. But whatever you did, academically, your plays and different things you were when you were at Queen Anne, I tried to be there for everything. And I know that those deposits into you recognize, because that's why your bucking would really stop short of just being flying in the face, defiant. Yeah. Because I think you were relishing the relationship and the investment of time that I made in
y'all don't know this, because I was that type of child and I wasn't going to get insanely disrespectful. Y'all don't know. I used to run away.
I was just, oh my God, you went where I thought about when he found you hiding in the back of the car. Out the whole time he was looking for you, he was outside in the back of the car.
Yeah, I will never forget that story. No, I remember that story. We had gotten into an argument, and I told him I was running away, I was leaving, and I went out the front door. But what I did is I didn't know that the car. We were living in a townhouse at the time, and the car was parked across the parking lot. So it just so happened that the car was open. So I got in the car, got in the back seat of the car, and laid down and took a nap. So mind you, when I took a nap, hours start to go by, and Daddy realizes in his mind, I'm actually gone. So what I did is I laid down in the seat, and then as it got dark, I woke up and I started watching the townhouse window from the car. And so Daddy, every few seconds, or Mommy would go over to the window and look out to try to find me. And,
I remember Mommy was like, "You better go find my child."
Yeah, and I don't know what happened. I don't know what was going on in that house. And so I literally stayed there, and I'll never forget this. They came downstairs, and my dad comes to the car to get in the car to drive and come find me. He got in the car, closed the door, and I said, "Hey, Dad."
Yes, he did.
Okay,
Yes, he did.
You know what?
And he turned around and get your tail back in the house.
Yes, he did. He was in the car the whole
Watch
time.
it because, but I think that's a good indication of what we're talking about. And I'm about to move to Mom and Kirsten because at the time we were just in a space where neither one of us were perfect. Because just as much as he talks about how he had to change his delivery and learn how to do things without wrath, I had to learn, and I think this is a consequence of my generation, how to hear past the wrath and hear the truth.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good.
And understand that because he loved me, even though he was displaying that love incorrectly, that did not mean I had the right to throw the baby out with the bathwater and decide that nothing that he said was true just because of the way he delivered it.
That's very good.
I had to get some understanding as I got older that, hey, just he's learning and he's growing. And we'll get more to our relationship older after we talk more as a family. But at the time in high school towards colleges, I think is when I really started understanding that my father loved me so much and that I did not agree with his presentation of his love at all, but that I almost owed it to him because of his love to me.
Yeah, that's good.
Love for me to learn how to help him display his love towards me
That's good.
better.
That's really good.
Like I had to allow my love.
Everybody is not willing or knows to do that or will even again be willing to do that. I think that's so important because that goes to what we were talking about the other day about I think a lot of times we don't acknowledge that we are going to have issues in family. It's bound to happen in relationships.
Right.
You will always have a point where you clash in your relationship with your wife, your brother, your family, your sister-in-law, whatever. A lot of times we try to run away from that or try to act like it doesn't happen. And I think it's a byproduct of not knowing how to communicate and move beyond a clash, which is what happened yesterday. We were clashing.
We'll
Yesterday. We'll get to that. I'm just touching on it a little bit. It's like the prelude to the popcorn. But like that's exactly what happened yesterday because we were clashing. And I just know that if we didn't know how to move on and choose, just like Mommy's been teaching, agape love is a choice. Right. If we didn't know how to or make the intentional choice to choose to move past the clash and figure out how to get past the clash, we could have walked away pissed off at each other and may not have talked for how we could have.
I think that's the perfect segue into y'all. And then if y'all don't know, we're building up our relationship. So we're starting with us, then we're going to talk a little bit about my mom and sister. And then we have my wonderful wife here, who is our newest addition to this dynamic. And so just stay tuned. We're building up into just more and more of our relationship. But Mommy and Kirsten, I want to start with y'all. Starting with Mom, because I did that first for us. What did you view your relationship with Kirsten at the time of birth up until, let's say, the same thing, high school, college area?
I think that I view my relationship as really the same with both of you. As a mother, one who was to care for you and nurture you, one who should correct you in love. I have always been a big
in love.
Yeah.
Boom!
Oh yeah, let's talk about that.
Okay, we'll get into that. Wait, don't Dad. You can't get into there, Dad. Let them finish.
Okay. In
We
love.
had our time.
Let me
We had our
explain
time.
to this. In love, but for the most part, I was the mother that tried to explain things, and I always had rules with the kids. And when I'm giving you a directive, I expect you to honor my position as your mother. And I'm still like that. I just said that to Derek earlier today.
Yes, she did.
I am your mother, and I don't care how old you get. If I am saying something to you, you will honor me and you will respect me.
You will honor me.
Period. And that is not a question. That is not, you don't have an option. You don't have options when it comes for that.
Yeah.
So that was my position with you all. I did my best to make up in the places where I knew that you all felt your father was not there. And I sat you all down one day, and I remember telling you all, hey, this is how your dad displays love.
Mhm.
Because what you all couldn't see was that your father displayed love by providing for you.
right.
Y'all could have anything in the world that y'all wanted, but y'all were never the type of kids that liked labels. There was a whole lot into that.
Right.
Every once in a while, y'all would ask for those things, but y'all could have had all that stuff. It was never an issue to you all.
I want to jump in here and notate this because I think it's interesting that I asked you about you and Kirsten, and part of your response pivoted back to Daddy, but I think there's a reason for that. The reason for that is I think much of Mommy's responsibility in our growing up became a conduit between us and Daddy.
Absolutely.
A large part of her responsibility
Daddy.
became softening Daddy's approach within her and,
That's true. 'Cause
and
Daddy
translating
is.
that approach to us. And that's just a crazy responsibility.
Absolutely.
So I want you to just kind of touch on that even more. Just
Well, the thing of it is that I knew how great.
Oh,
Don't
all
cry. Hit
right.
the
I knew.
It's a
First
blurry,
cry
y'all.
of
It's a
the
little
night.
blurry, y'all.
I knew.
We're gonna stop saying that. Tear alert.
Tear alert.
And still know how great of a man your father is. And because a person has a certain viewpoint on life or deals with stuff a certain way, we're all products of our environment.
Right.
Okay. And I knew that the way he was dealing with you all was a product of his environment. And my difference in the way that I dealt with you all was a product of my environment. So my position was I needed to make sure that I protect him by trying to keep him in the right light in
Yeah.
God's eyes.
Woo,
That's
that's
I
good.
needed to protect him.
Yeah.
That was
Ooh,
my
that's good.
role. I have to protect him because at the end of the day, the kids don't get it now.
Mhm.
One day they will. And I pray for the day that they will get it. And I remember when Derek came home and talked to his dad and I and was like, oh, you know what? I get it now. I get it, and you the same way. And so I knew what kind of father he was. And that was demonstrated in how he dealt with Kirsten, a father that would never leave her side during 6 months of chemotherapy. He would never. He
Yeah.
would send me away and not leave her side. He
Yeah.
would send me away to get rest. If anybody's not going to rest, it's going to be me. He never left her side.
Okay.
So that whole thing was like how I presented my mothering to you all. And at the same time with some discipline because I wasn't the type that did a lot of spankings or beatings as they call them.
I got slapped.
But if
She
you
did a lot of
became-
fighting.
but if you
I
became
had a smart mouth.
if you bucked up to me as if you were my equal as a child, I would
Okay.
take you down.
I want to pause you
I
there.
would take you down.
I
That's
want
the
to pause
day
you
I
there.
got. No, that's the day I did get
She
taken.
got taken down. I
Correction.
remember one time Kirsten got disrespectful. My mom put her in a headlock and dove.
September and
Onto the
Derek
ground.
was laughing in the
Okay.
kitchen.
So-
I was on the ground.
Kirsten. So keep talking about that a little bit more. What your childhood, your growing up, your relationship with your parents, or your thought about that relationship. What was where were you at in your younger years? Because you already said you had a smart mouth. So I want to
I
know what.
had a
Yeah.
smart mouth. So wait, phrase the question again.
Had
I have.
okay.
Yeah.
thank you.
So you
God
had
is doing a great work.
you had and have partially a smart mouth.
Right.
What do you think that was a product of in your younger years?
Well, I think something that mommy said is something that I think as a child I needed and most children don't do. I need explanation on things a lot because if I don't understand it, it's hard for me to move. So translating that into childhood, it's like if I always tell this funny joke. I never was a child that went to camp because you know why? I didn't understand it. I needed people to explain to me why you wanted me to go sit in summer camp when I could just sit at home. So we always joke about how I never was a child that was on team sports or anything like that, really, because to me, I would go and they would tell me you have to do this, that, and the third at a point in time all day long at camp and on teams. And I'm like, nah, I want to do what I want when I want to do it. And I need explanation on why
You're
I
still
have to
like
do. I'm still like that. So framing it back to what we're talking about,
Our relationship now.
our relationship now. Well,
Don't touch on the
so
relationship.
don't touch
dig
it.
into
Not yet. Okay. I think it just has evolved. But growing up, I was a child that had a smart mouth. And a couple of times I got slapped had something to do with that. And then there were some other things. But
But the last time I spanked you,
we laughed.
you were in the no, it wasn't a laugh.
I remember laughing.
It was like 10. It was 10. It was definitely 10th grade. It might have
No,
been.
babe.
Yeah,
last-
yeah, no,
I
it
think
was.
It had to because it was about
It was.
15. The
It
last
was.
time I remember you trying to
Because-
spank.
When I realized what I was doing, it was like, I mean, it was like God gave
Yeah.
me a pause moment because I was wailing.
Yeah,
You got smart at me. I mean,
Yeah.
really smart. And I jumped you.
but wait.
And I was wailing away, and God, I mean, it was like God gave me a revelation.
Right.
What are you doing?
But what I remember
And He
is
showed me you're hitting on your daughter. It was
Exactly.
almost as if another man was hitting on my daughter.
Hey, don't cry.
And it was
Gonna cry.
no,
Tear alert! Tear alert!
Tear alert.
It was like
Put that in the
God was
comments.
saying-
Tear alert.
It was like God was saying, "How are you going to do this?" And you vowed that you would never let another man do it. But what are you doing?
That's a
There's
whole
got to be a
other
better
modern
way.
Christian Monday topic. No, what I was
It
going to
was-
say was I remember laughing because I think we're talking about the same day, but I think I was about 15 and we were in the sitting room in the Brandywine house and he was like, "Get over here," about to whoop me. And we're all in position, the whooping position, guys. And I'm like on my knees and we just both stopped. And I guess God showed him some vision to stop.
That was
Because
it.
I just looked back and I think I said, still with a smart mouth, y'all. I said, "What you gonna do? Spank me?" And we
And that
we
was it.
we
Never
both
again.
started laughing though. And I think he walked off mad. But it was really like, I'm this big 15, 16-year-old. You gonna spank me? And then he was like, "Get to your room." So I don't think he was laughing, but that initial point, but
It's got to
yeah.
be a better
How did we
Okay.
get to spanking?
Okay,
Where
no,
are we
the
at?
reason why, good, this is good because we're just talking about where our relationships kind of were at the time. And I want to use this moment to kind of even transition into bringing Emerald into this conversation because now we're getting into current relationships
Yeah.
Right.
and what happened yesterday. I wanted to lead up to that.
Yeah.
It was
But
a long lead.
yeah, it was
That
a long
was a
lead.
long
We needed to
lead.
dig in a little bit. But I want to, Emerald, as my wife, is new into this dynamic of relationship, and especially because we know we're the type of family, if you don't know us, but we're a family who knows that our purposes are extremely tied to one another.
Right.
We're not a family where somebody's going to be over there doing that and somebody's going to be over here doing that. We know that we're very connected to one another in what our purpose is in life. Hence, we have a platform called the Modern Christian Family.
Right.
But I want Emerald to kind of talk on first, what was her perception on some of your relationships in this group when you entered in? What was your perception?
Ooh, it's
Right
gonna
off
get
the bat.
hot in here, Chad.
Yeah.
This is good.
Okay, yeah, great question. I think I'll probably speak to that obviously from my perspective, which is from where I come from and what my experience was with the family that I grew up in. And so I think I'll start with Mom. You have been an amazing mother-in-law. However, when we first got together, and I think it's partially because everything was so fast. It was a shock to everyone's system. Like,
Right.
who's this girl? Where's she coming from? We talking about marrying her. Y'all just met. Like, it was like, what?
Hold on.
What in the world is going on? I remember feeling some type of way a little bit because just from my experience with my family and how he came in, I think the first, date and whatever else, as soon as he met my parents, I think maybe my dad's birthday or something, Father's Day, something was right around
We
the
were best
corner.
friends immediately.
He was invited immediately to all family functions. Like, it just was like, oh, Derek is, that's my son, whatever. And that's just how it was. I remember it was Mother's Day and you guys all went out to Del Frisco and I wasn't a part of that.
That's his fault.
Now,
We've talked about that.
we've
We've
talked
talked
about
about
that too, about
yeah.
that also being partially on him for not
Yeah.
making it a point to make sure that I was included.
Ah.
But-
This was before we were married, you guys.
But my
Just FYI.
perception
This is
of
when
it
we were dating.
was
Right.
they don't want
Want
me
me. I get
included.
you.
Oh,
And my
wow.
perception wasn't that it was him that didn't make a bigger deal about
Right,
making
right.
sure that let's
Mhm.
include my girlfriend because
Right.
this is someone who is important to me and that I want to be a part of our family. When for me, it was not a question. Like, he's coming on a family trip. He's
Right.
coming when we go and do whatever it is that, you know what I mean? So, and I think that's even just a difference in how he and I grew up.
Absolutely.
And a difference in how he and I see certain things. So for me, even though it's not true that you guys weren't feeling type of way, that was my perception.
Gotcha.
Right.
So walk us up into now marriage. or were getting ready to get married, or the first few months of marriage, what was your, and you maybe want to stay with my mom or move to other dynamic, what was your experience?
Can I interject one thing?
Sure.
You said that was your perception, meaning you perceived something. I submit that was your assumption, because we physically weren't even, you had no eye to eye.
Yeah.
We didn't send any signals to make you feel. It was just the fact that you weren't included.
Right.
You assumed
That you didn't want me
because
included.
perception is one thing. People can give off some vibes and you
Right.
can't
That's
pick up
good.
on something.
Yeah.
That's good.
We never had that exchange.
Making a
Right.
So I
distinction.
think, and that's real, because a lot of people assume a lot of things.
That's
Right.
good.
That-
And
that's
assumption
totally
is
left
the
field.
lowest form of knowledge.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, that's true. That's
So-
true.
But not you, but you get it.
Yeah.
See, I was like, wait, that could have been
Right,
me.
no,
I'm like, no, sis, I'm not
I
insulting.
know what you're saying.
Go ahead.
I don't remember what your.
So I said,
question was.
leading up into marriage, you may want to change your perception of, from my mom to Kirsten. What was your perception now? We're married, on your relationship.
Oh, so after and we weren't even married at this point yet. Still, I had a dinner with your mom and your sister, just the three of us. After that, I was just like, okay, you know, everything's good, like whatever, like whatever I thought previously, it was like whatever. That's not a big deal. That's not how they feel about me. That's not, you know, what it is. I do feel like we kind of aired a lot of stuff out at that dinner and that conversation of you guys, you know, voicing your concerns of you guys this is really fast, you know, I feel like I'm about to lose my brother, like, you know, those types of, you did say that at that conversation.
But good.
But after having that conversation and us being able to be open with each other and honest with each other about that, for me was just like, okay, cool, let's move forward. Let's move on.
I think it's good for us to let the audience know that Kirsten and I talked about that, and it was intentional on our part, because we never wanted whoever Derek married or whoever she marries, we never wanted them to feel outside.
Right.
So that was we had this conversation. We have to take Emma to dinner. We call you Emmy now, but I mean, we were like, we have to take her to dinner. We have to let her know we're on her side. We have to let her know if Derek ever acts up, call us, you know, because that's what we wanted for our family. We didn't want anybody coming to our family feeling like an
And
outsider.
y'all made that clear on that day.
So what was
I
that
was just like,
statement?
oh, we good.
We're united.
But
What did mommy say? Mommy said we never say it again. We never wanted her to what?
Feel like she
An
was an
outsider.
outsider.
Okay, so you said that in your mouth. Did you mean that in your heart?
Absolutely.
well, no,
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. We're
Wait,
gonna get there. We're gonna get
Yeah,
there.
and you
Wait.
could have even said it in your head. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
We're gonna get there. I'm
Yeah.
literally about
We
to,
said it.
yeah, I'm literally about to go right there.
You
So,
said it.
hold on. Shh, everybody, because for the audience, I don't want y'all to get confused. So we're getting ready to turn into, he's referencing something that we discussed yesterday, but I wanted to take a moment to say, I think we talked about it earlier, how you were raised and how you frame things can cause how a lot of things are assumed or perceived wrongly by different people.
Right.
Because I think even though your perception of them was wrong, I feel like the correct perception that was twisted by the devil was
Ooh.
we were very protective as a family.
And can I
That
say
was the
something
truth.
else too? I think that
That's
is
good.
another good point,
That's
just
good.
mentioning the devil. I honestly feel like that was the enemy sowing seeds in my mind.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't
good.
want you to be a
He
part.
twisted the truth.
Right.
They don't. She doesn't really love you like that. They don't really accept you as the daughter or as their sister. That was the enemy trying to do that to me in my mind and make me feel some type of way towards you guys. And it's
Exactly.
like
He twisted
you know,
the truth.
the truth.
Yeah.
Because the reality,
There's no truth in him. And
the,
let's
re-
be clear.
the reality was, and I'm realizing it as I'm talking, the reality was because our purposes are so tied to one another, and because we've kind of always subconsciously, spiritually known that growing up, I think we have always grown up as an extremely hyper-protective family. Like we've talked about this, we won't get into this much, but we've talked about even amongst our larger extended family structure, the four of us were always extremely protected. We didn't talk about much with other people. We didn't expose much to other people. So because of that, the truth was, it was probably abnormal for Emerald coming into that relationship because where her family was a bit more open.
We're very open about everything.
With everything and accepting of me, the truth was we were very protective,
Right.
which is why I think in hindsight, why I didn't think to invite her to the birthday dinner that first time.
And
It's
then
because
also,
in my mind, I thought we're
This is
not
a
ready.
family thing.
We're not
Right.
ready to breach that
Right.
that wall yet.
I just want to say this. I also, something I thought about when you was talking, I also think Derek living in the same city as your parents and mommy being based in Louisiana, I think also caused probably Derek to join your family smoother, more quickly.
Yeah.
It was easier because I feel like if she lived in the Maryland area,
It would have been different.
It would have
So
been
good. I want to go the direction that Daddy was tipping on because he said, "Did you feel that way in your heart?" And Kirsten, I want you to tell the people the basis of kind of how we got into this conversation. Talk a little bit about yesterday and what was revealed
Woo!
yesterday.
okay,
For
y'all.
It's the good stuff.
This is what we
Yesterday-
leaned up to.
Okay,
It's the
I
grand
don't even
finale.
know what. Okay, yesterday was hilarious. Okay, yesterday our family. I don't know if you all saw, was prepping for, mommy, launched a new location for the ministry and our name change. The ministry's name change. So that is where our focus was supposed to be, and so as a result of activities that we were getting together for launch day, us three got into a disagreement on something.
Who was us three?
The kids.
The kids, the
We're not kids,
the
we're
children,
children.
the young adults. And so we got into a disagreement, and the disagreement morphed into a whole maybe hour and a half thing. And the funny thing that I have to point out was Daddy, who is just the funniest guy. My father, if you know him, to know him is to love him. He's hilarious. So as we're having this very serious, very heartfelt, passionate disagreement and debate going on between us, Mommy's sitting trying to, I guess, give her input.
Tell them what the
Daddy,
debate was about in a synopsis.
the
Quick.
debate was about
A video.
a video. It was about a posting a certain video, a video edit or something, and how we wanted to present a video.
On behalf of Mommy.
On
You gotta
behalf
make
of
that clear.
Mommy. Yeah.
It was a video for Mommy.
It was a video for
And
Mommy.
we were arguing about how that video needed to be presented. So it's
Right.
her thing, but we're arguing, the three of us, about how it needs to be presented.
So she look at, yeah, so we're arguing about it, and the funny thing was Daddy runs and grabs his phone and starts recording. I think we didn't even realize that he was recording until maybe 10 minutes after, because he starts talking to the camera. It's like, "See, guys, Modern Christian Family." But
We'll release that later.
we'll release that at some point. But if we would have been dressed properly, we probably would have released it tonight. So y'all got to stay tuned. Maybe we could turn that into a podcast where y'all can hear the sound from it, because it was powerful.
But what feelings did you discover, Kirsten?
The feelings that I discovered, the feelings that I revealed that I had already begun to discover over the past couple of months is basically feelings of help me with it.
Competition
With my sister-in-law. And this is something that I had talked to Mommy a couple of months back, and basically what I was talking about it was basically what I was expressing to Mommy was I had begun to feel feelings that I felt was foreign as it pertains to my sister-in-law. And so breaking that down is I was feeling like the stupidest thing is like we would be in the kitchen cooking together and she might put salt in the spaghetti and I think it don't need no salt, and it would turn in my mind, or I would start to feel this tension in the kitchen. I'm using that as an example, but I would start to feel this tension in the kitchen, or almost like something that was there that really didn't exist. And my conversation with my mother was, I have no idea why I'm feeling like this. These feelings are foreign. And so all that began to spill out yesterday. I had never revealed this to Emerald until yesterday when we got into this passionate conversation. And one of the powerful things Emerald said was, I'm utilizing muscles that I've never had to utilize before.
Expound on that.
So expound on that, Em.
Yeah, so I was basically, so she explained that to me and asked me, do you get what I'm saying? I said, well, I understand what you're saying, but I can't say that I felt the same thing towards you in any of those situations, but I can understand where you're coming from because I have been on the other end of that before, and you have not ever had to experience that. I have been the girlfriend of someone before,
right,
whose sister didn't like me or whose mother didn't like me for the simple fact that I was with their brother or their son. Sorry, no one's husband.
Corrected. It's okay. I didn't flinch. I
with
know
their
you
brother or their son, and had nothing to do with who I was as a person. But then I've also been the sister, and knowing how I felt when someone didn't like me and they don't know me. I go the extra mile to make, for instance, my brother has a girlfriend. I go the extra mile to make her feel like my sister. They are not married yet, but to me, she's my sister. And I said to Kirsten, Derek's never brought a girl home. So
Right.
you've never had to
You
never had to experience that. And you've
Right.
never had to exercise that muscle
Right.
of extending that grace to someone who's coming into the family that's new.
Right. And the other thing was that I've never had to do it on that level, but also I pretty much have always been, for 27 years, I have been
She's
the
been the
only
only girl.
young
Only
girl
girl.
and voice in this family.
Right.
And so I think the feelings that I was expressing yesterday and revealing, and I have been expressing to my mom over the past couple of months, that were foreign to me, because I was literally having conversations with my mom, like, I don't know why I'm feeling like this, or why I feel like there's some type of presence of competition that does not exist in reality with my sister-in-law. And it was
Well, I want to hop in there.
Go ahead.
Because I think that's what I drew out of your conversation yesterday, talking about even the example of that kitchen moment.
Mhm.
It's crazy to me how Kirsten felt a tension in the kitchen because of what was going on in her heart
Right.
that Emerald didn't feel.
Right.
Because
Oblivious.
Emerald was
Right.
oblivious because she wasn't the one having to flex that muscle.
Right.
And I think that's something for our
Yeah,
viewers to
that's
take
good.
away, that sometimes the tension or the feeling or
It's all in your head.
is something you've created because you're working a muscle or dealing with an area that you've not dealt with within yourself.
Right.
So you think it's far-fetched when you go to a person and they're like, nah, I ain't got no problem with you. Or
Right.
I ain't got no issue with
Right,
you.
right,
And you like, nah, I feel like there's an issue.
Right. Making stuff up.
In reality, no, there's a tension within yourself.
Yeah.
So I was going to say that in that whole episode, I think that there were growth moments for all of us. And I don't know if we're going to have time to get into all of them.
We gotta
But like one of the growth
Yeah.
moments that I saw for Kirsten was Kirsten, after some extensive quote unquote therapy in the conversation.
Yeah, because
After
fine.
after some extensive therapy, and I think the tears were that, as you said, it was foreign to you, but you also had to recognize and reconcile the fact that you've never been a person that may have been envious, jealous, covetous of somebody else. But I think it was an epiphany moment where you recognize, okay, and you were able to own,
Yeah.
I have a problem because my brother has been taken.
Right.
But you had to work your way through that.
Right.
And there's never, when it comes to the two of you all, yeah, of course, as siblings, you have your issues or you've had your differences, but really when it comes down to it, Derek will always prefer you.
Mhm.
It's just being the older brother, being the oldest, being the boy in the family. That's how his dad raised him.
Right.
You know, I'm going to prefer, even when you hated it and you
Mhm.
didn't want to do it and you felt like she was flat out wrong,
Mhm.
ultimately it will always come back to he's going to protect her.
Mhm.
So I think all of that has an aspect to it. And like even with Emerald and Derek, I would never forget the day you all got married and you all left for your honeymoon. And I was in one hotel room, Kirsten was in the other hotel room with my aunt and my first cousin. And they called me, they was like, you got to come in here. Something's wrong with Kirsten. All of a sudden they hear her in the bathroom and she's hysterically crying in the bathroom. And my cousin says to me, when I hit the door, she says to me, I think she's having a hard time with her brother. She's feeling like she's losing her brother.
Right.
So
but
she
it was
hysterical.
it was so crazy
she
to
was
me
hysterical.
because I'm telling you, all this came out of left field. If
Right.
you know me, you know I'm my family knows me. I take things very well. Like I
Absolutely.
strive through my cancer diagnosis. I strolled through that. Of course, there were tough times, but I can take a lot of things. And so the feelings that I felt on Derek's during Derek's wedding, and the feelings that I've been feeling from Emerald, or not from Emerald, but regarding my relationship with Emerald, really came out of left field. So for me, I'm talking to my mom, but I think this is so important because I think this is important to point out that the enemy plays a part in this.
Yeah.
And if you don't identify that thing,
Absolutely.
if you don't identify that thing and start attacking that thing, it will
Absolutely.
fester. And this is how families get blown up and torn apart, because the issue is not feeling these things because you're gonna have clashes, feelings, whatever with your family because that's a relationship and that's what all relationships experience. The issue comes when you don't identify that thing and start attacking it with the words, attacking it with what you know is reality. The things that I was feeling was literally made up. We know it was made up because Emerald's over here saying I wasn't feeling nothing. I'm over here saying I was feeling whatever type of way, completely made up. But it's just so important to identify it and attack it because had we not, like, again, we could have walked away from that conversation yesterday and what wouldn't have been speaking for a couple of weeks if we did not push through the feelings and figure it out.
And I just want to, piggyback off of that, that I think the enemy attacks these relationships because he knows, just like what Derek said before, our purposes are so integrally connected.
Right.
And he knows that so much good will come from us having strong relationships with each other.
Right.
And he's like, I have to stop that at all costs.
Yeah.
I feel that way about with everybody. Like there are things that he does and try to plant in our minds and plant in our hearts about things that's just literally not the truth.
Not the truth.
Not the case.
And you can't have our relationships, devil.
And
you couldn't have my
we
health.
decree that. We take a moment to decree that over your
everybody.
family.
Yes.
We take a moment to decree that the devil cannot have your familial relationships, your friends, your mothers, your fathers. We put those things on the altar and we put those things before God because some of you, many of you, most of you have some sort of purpose that is supposed to be birthed out of that God relationship. So you have to do the emotional work.
You
Now,
have to.
now, granted, there's a point where it becomes traumatic and abuse.
Yeah.
In those times, you just need to get out.
Right.
In those times, if it's traumatic and it's abuse and you can't handle it, sometimes you just have to detach.
Yeah.
But if there is a light and we know that it's something that can be worked through, you have a responsibility to be the one that reaches out to try to do something, Mom.
Yeah. I was just gonna segue into this from your comment. It takes one person to forgive, but it takes two to reconcile. So you have to understand that you can forgive and walk away because it takes two people or more to be intentional about a resolve.
Yeah.
And so in our particular family, all of us just happen to come to the table with being intentional about having a resolve. But if one of us decided, well, I don't want to deal with it, I don't want to talk about it, there will be no resolve with us and that person.
Exactly.
And you have to find a place, a space of peace where you will be okay with somebody who does not want. And the truth of the matter, I've learned in my 30 years of pastoring is some people don't possess the capacity, the ability, the courage to do that, because the hardest thing in the world to do for every single person in life is to look at yourself in the mirror and own who you are. Your positives, your negatives, your mess, what you need to change. That's very hard. But the moment you can do that is the moment you set yourself free in every relationship. The moment you can own that. And everybody, you have to understand, some people's trauma, not just because people don't want to reconcile. I've learned that as a pastor. Some people's trauma runs so deep, they just don't have the strength. They can't, you have to just let them live in the world that they have created for themselves, even though you know it's a world they have created. You have to let them do it because they don't possess it, and you have to give grace in those areas.
So this is what I want to do. We're going to have the part 2 because I don't want to miss dealing. The part 2 of this is going to be about older working relationships. Once you've transitioned out of the childhood and you begin functioning, we have a couple of things that we were talking about yesterday. We'll part 2 that. But I want to take this moment for closing thoughts and to answer a couple questions that we saw along the way. I know Bianca had a question first. So starting with Bianca, and while I'm reading this question, if anybody else has a question or comment, let us know right now in the comments so that we can reply. Bianca's question was, seems like Kirsten didn't feel the experience of the authoritative parenting. Do you think it makes a difference in who we've become?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yes. I think it makes a difference, but a mild difference because our experiences in that light was different, but our upbringing was the same. So I don't think
our foundation was the same.
That's good. Our foundation was the same. So it wasn't like either one of them treated us differently, or I got softness and Derek always got harshness per se. I think it's just because of the dynamic between a dad and his son and his dad and his daughter. You know, daddy's girls, daughters to fathers are very, very precious. So it's just the difference in how a dad is going to handle a male son versus a female daughter. So that's why I say the foundation was the same. But do I think
I would
Go
say
ahead.
in a way, the
Mhm.
only way I think, not the only way, because I feel like you're growing into this, you're just coming a little later, is we talked about the therapy and being a therapist and me kind of functioning in these more current days as
Right.
like a mediator. That's why I got my shirt on that says God and God therapy. I know it may be a little blurry, but you don't know. You can have
blurry?
and you can
We're
have
gonna work on
therapy.
that next week.
But I think because I had such an authoritative childhood, I developed a ability to voice how I felt and how the oppressed person in a relationship,
Yeah.
or the person that was upset, or the person that was insulted, or the person that was on that end. I developed words for how to communicate from that person's perspective.
Yeah.
And so then as I got older, I was able to become that median ground between, like, my friends, I often laugh because we'll be in different discussions and I'll fall into a middle ground that discussion
always, yeah.
and get frustrated because they're like, why choose a side?
Yeah.
And for me, I feel like I don't do that in all cases because part of my calling is to not choose a side to certain things.
Right.
Like if it's sin, that's a whole different conversation.
Right.
But in certain conversations, kind of opening people's eyes up to, hey, you may feel like you're the authority in this situation and you have the answer.
Right.
And you may feel like you're the one being abused and their authority and you have the answer against the abuse. When in reality, there's a little bit of truth.
On
between
both
both of you.
sides, yeah.
The authority figure is being a little truthful and they're saying some things. And just like on the other end, the other figure is saying some things.
Yeah.
So did you
never
did
answer
y'all
how
answer
that
the
makes her different?
So that's how I think Kirsten, in a way, is coming into that now, where because she didn't have to deal with so much of the authority, she already had her strong voice. And so she comes from that strong voice perspective.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She didn't really have to navigate as much doing both
Yeah.
because she didn't have that kind of hammer
Mhm.
that I did in that way. So she already kind of developed that strong voice.
So,
then
but let
what
me
is she
say
coming
this
into?
too.
I don't understand that part.
I think she's coming into more of the both sidedness. That's what I mean when she's coming
I'm
into.
seeing someone else's.
I'm seeing somebody
Oh
else's
yeah,
side.
that's
what I-
100% accurate because for my 27 years of life, for most of them, I thought I had the answer for everything.
You know what I'm saying?
I know mommy got something to say about
No,
that.
I just think a lot of it have to do with your personalities as well. Because as a person looking from the outside in on you all's relationship, I think it has a lot to do with personalities. Kirsten is her personality is that I'm right and you're not gonna tell me. That's just always how she's been. So I think some of that had to do with that. Okay.
So one of the things that Derek did, you just saying, it just reminded me of one of the reasons why I changed my approach to fathering him. I thought I mistook your mediator,
But this was-
your ability to galvanize the masses. I took it as I thought that people would take advantage of you.
Mm.
And one
Yeah.
of the
In
things,
some ways they do.
but one of the things that opened my eyes about you and just how you live your life was you would take people. I bought you that BMW not to be a taxi cab for all your Temple friends. Every time I turn around, he would take friends to Timbuktu and back.
Yeah.
But the year, and I still don't know why he got his license revoked for a year. But for that entire year that he got his license revoked, he had a ride wherever he wanted to go. The
Yep.
same friends
The seed
was
he has
picking him
sown.
up, taking Derek where you need to go. He has sown so many seeds into so many people that for a whole year, he had transportation wherever he needed to go. And that amazed me and it gave me a different perspective. This young man is really growing up. He's doing things. He got friends like I never had friends.
Well,
Right.
And I started respecting that and realizing, okay, he is growing up, and it
Mhm.
changed my approach.
I want to jump on that C because I think it'll answer this
That was
next
good,
question.
yeah, okay.
Zakia asked, Derek, what made this? She was talking about me and Daddy.
Mhm.
What made that switch in your mind? Was it a defining moment, or did it just come with age and maturity? I think it came with age and maturity, because I think at some point it came with age, maturity, and listening to other people.
Mhm.
Because at some point in my life, I made the realization that the same sowing and reaping principle that applied to finances applied to everything else.
Oh, that's good.
Somewhere along the way, it just clicked that sowing and reaping does not just deal with your money.
That's good.
So when I made that realization, suddenly it became, if you want to see something different, you're going to have to sow it.
That's good.
You're going to have to give your father what you wanted to see back from him.
Yeah.
If you wanted to see understanding, you're going to need to shut your mouth and give some.
That's good.
That is
You're
very
going to
good.
need to. That's what you have to do,
The principle.
because that principle, I knew once I made that realization, the Holy Spirit, I knew that principle enacted would cause change, and that's why the title of this class is Loving Through Disagreement.
I wanted to, this might be the closing point, but I wanted to say this. And now what it has amazingly happened is Derek is now his father's protector.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to me,
Yeah.
he will, Mom, don't do that. Let Dad, whatever.
Yeah.
He is now the protector.
Don't cry, big guy.
Derek is now the protector of his
Tear
father.
alert.
So this thing has come full circle. That now is like, if you come for his dad, he is now, and that's what he was the mediator yesterday. Because if you come for his dad,
When you
he's
attack
the
me,
one.
That's a part two. That's a part two.
y'all gotta hear that. The pastor attacked the brother.
No, we'll save that. We'll save that.
I did not.
I think lastly, I had another question. How do you think the experience you and Kirsten felt attributes to how you two adult? I think we kind of just answered that. I think in our adulthood and maturity, and as you get older, you learn things at different points. And I think that's just a good place to close. I think we all are getting towards the same place in God. It just looks differently.
Yeah.
I think the foundation of what Kirsten talks about, because Emerald, we haven't even gotten to it really, but one day we're going to have her parents on to get into it.
Right.
Because Emerald comes from such an amazing, solid family structure too, that all of us collectively is the foundation that we've had is God, good parenting,
Yeah.
and solid parents.
Yeah.
That foundation is not what everybody gets.
Yeah.
Some other people's foundation may look a little bit differently, but I think when God is the great equalizer in all of that.
That's good.
God and Holy Spirit equalizes all of our foundation.
Right.
And so while we all may be working through things a little bit differently, and me and Kirsten adult differently because of it, and Emerald and my dad and my mom, we do things differently. At the end of the day, what we left that conversation yesterday going was, we are headed towards the same place.
Right.
We are not each
Yeah.
other's enemies.
Yeah.
We are not each other's war. We don't have to war with each other.
Yeah.
So that we are on the same team. So the closing to this is, that's why this class was called Loving Through Disagreement.
Yeah.
Because when you have love and you do agape love, which is a choice, then you know that at the end of a disagreement, that does not mean that we're not on the same team.
That's good.
It doesn't mean that we are not together, and it doesn't mean that we are not supportive of one another, or that we're at war with one another. Guys,
I just wanted to say, I think what you talked about with Emerald and her family is because whether it's said or not, or verbalized, I should say, or not, is we, no matter how we've navigated through this, no matter what we've come from, like I came from a foundation of, as a product of a mom who had me out of wedlock, I came from an understanding of you fight for your family. Your father came from a home where his mother and father got divorced. But at the end of the day, what he learned was you fight for your family.
Yeah.
So we taught you all that. You fight for it. That's why you've gone through all these things. Same thing with Emerald. So you got all these people now that no matter what, what we know is we fight for our family. Come hell, high water, low water, no water at all. That is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
We all brought the same understanding to the table.
guys, we love y'all so much. If you enjoyed this, please put that in the comments now. Let us know what you thought. Tell us you thought it was great. Tell us you thought it was moving. Tell us anything that it just registered with you. We are going to part 2 this Loving Through Disagreements, because we'll get to the more current stuff of just, I think it's going to be good for you all to see our current functioning as a family.
Yeah.
This
'cause we kinda
conversation,
talked about some past
we
stuff,
deal with the
but-
past stuff leading up to these days, but I think it's going to be good for you to see our current functioning and dynamic.
Yeah.
We love you guys so much.
Please go
I hear
ahead, Ed.
the scripture, love covers a multitude of sins.
Yeah. that's
When it
good.
says it covers, meaning it covers it up. Okay, don't deal with that. Let the love take care of that until
Yeah.
we can deal with that and eradicate that and get rid of that.
That's good.
I'm gonna
Choose
let
your
this
battles.
love cover it.
Absolutely.
Emerald was
Yeah.
saying
That's
choose
good.
your battles yesterday, and I think that's what you just touched on.
Yeah.
Love you guys. If you guys can please follow us, follow us on Instagram, The Modern Christian Family. Like this page, share this broadcast. We are gonna I want to say subscribe to the YouTube. We need you to subscribe so we can continue to grow this platform.
Type in the Modern Christian Family.
The
on YouTube.
Modern Christian Family on YouTube, and you will find us. Subscribe. We are going to work on the picture. It was perfect the last few times we did it. We have the top-notch Wi-Fi, but we'll figure it out. We will work it. Thank you for hanging with us tonight. I just wanted to say the video is probably going to be clear. So if you want to watch this again when we are able to upload it on YouTube somewhere between tonight and tomorrow, if you want to rewatch it with a clear picture, you can go to YouTube.
And share it with somebody.
And share it with somebody because we need these conversations. We need these
Right.
platforms to
Transparent.
build transparent conversations, to build strong, healthy relationships, family, all that. So we love you guys. Thank you for being
Bye.
with us.
Love y'all. See y'all later.
Bye.